Welcome to this deep dive into leadership. You guys gave us some really fantastic material for this one. A mix of book excerpts and audio clips, all focused on, what it takes to build a truly great team and make smart decisions that every leader faces.
Yeah, and what I find really interesting about this collection is the emphasis on the human side of leadership.
Oh, absolutely.
It's easy to get caught up in, numbers and strategies, but at the end of the day, it's all about people. Understanding people and fostering collaboration and just navigating all the little nuances of how we interact as humans.
Yeah, we've got some incredible stories here to unpack. We're going to uncover the surprisingly simple criteria that one CEO used to build a $15 billion retail empire.
Right.
We'll explore how facing up to uncomfortable truths, even in a totally different culture, can actually turn around a struggling company, and we'll tackle that age-old challenge of setting ambitious goals, but knowing when to push back against expectations that maybe just aren't realistic.
It's a delicate balance for sure, but one that's essential to master for any leader who wants to achieve lasting success.
Okay, so let's jump right in. One of the first things that really stood out to me was this whole idea of non-negotiables in leadership selection. The book excerpt highlights Ben Camarda, CEO of TJX.
Right.
They're the powerhouse behind TJ Maxx and Marshalls. He built this $15 billion retail giant using a remarkably simple hiring filter.
It is simple on the surface, but the brilliance lies in its focus. Camarda looks for just three things: street smarts, people skills, and an intuitive sense for merchandising.
And he believes you just can't teach that stuff.
His belief is you can't teach those qualities. You either have them or you don't.
That really makes you think. It's like they say, hire for attitude, train for skill.
Right.
But maybe Kamara is suggesting that certain skills are just so fundamental to success in certain roles that they really become those true non-negotiables.
Precisely. And there's a great parallel in the story of IBM's turnaround back in the 90s. Everyone assumed they needed a tech wizard to lead them out of their slump.
Right, yeah.
But the board wisely recognized that IBM's real need was a business genius, someone who could really drive change and revitalize the company's culture. And they found that leader in Lou Gerstner, who, interestingly enough, did not have a deep tech background. But what he did have was a very keen understanding of business strategy and this remarkable ability to rally people around a new vision.
So what's the takeaway here for you as you think about your own leadership journey? How do you define those must-haves, those non-negotiable qualities that are absolutely essential for success in the roles you've held or aspire to?
It's such an important question, and one that I would really encourage every listener to ponder.
Yeah.
Take a moment to really reflect on your own experiences and aspirations. What are those core skills or traits beyond the technical expertise that have been consistently critical to your success? And equally important, what are those deal breakers, those qualities that, if absent, would almost certainly lead to failure or frustration?
Yeah, I love that it's like creating your own leadership compass almost, a guide to help you navigate the complexities of hiring and team building and even personal growth.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And once you have a clear understanding of those non-negotiables, you can then start to build a team that really complements your strengths and fills those gaps where you might need additional support.
Okay, so I've got the right people in the room. That's step one. But then comes the even trickier part, actually molding those individuals into a high-performing team.
And that's where the concept of team dynamics really comes into play. It's not enough to just assemble a group of talented people.
Right.
You have to cultivate an environment where those talents can mesh, where individuals feel empowered to contribute their best work, and where that collective output is greater than the sum of its parts.
Yeah.
David Novak, the former CEO of Yum Brands, had a great way of putting it.
Okay.
He said, "Great leaders, coach. They don't just boss."
So it's about creating a space where everyone feels valued and heard and supported.
Precisely. It's about fostering this culture of collaboration where individual ego takes a back seat to the shared pursuit of excellence. And it's about recognizing that everyone on that team has something unique to contribute, even if those contributions might not always align with those traditional hierarchies or expectations.
Right.
One of the audio clips that you provided highlights this beautifully. It features Desh Palawal, who led ABB's automation division. And he walked into a company culture that he described as one of polite restraint.
Oh,
People would agree to decisions in meetings, but then would kind of drag their feet on the implementation if they didn't truly support the direction.
Oh, wow. I've definitely seen that play out in teams where you get the surface level agreement,
Yes,
but not the genuine buy-in.
exactly.
So how did he tackle that?
So he knew that to get the company moving faster and with more conviction, he needed real commitment from his team. And To achieve that commitment, he had to break through this wall of silence and encourage people to be candid even when it felt uncomfortable.
Yeah.
He wanted people to voice their concerns, challenge assumptions, engage in healthy debate. It's a great lesson in the power of open communication.
That resonates so much with what you were saying about coaching versus bossing. It's about creating that space where people feel safe to disagree,
Yes.
to speak their minds, and ultimately to contribute to a better solution. It's not about demanding obedience, it's about inviting participation and ownership.
Absolutely. And this leads us to a topic that I think many leaders, and frankly many people in general, tend to shy away from conflict.
Conflict, that doesn't sound like a recipe for a high-performing team.
It might seem a bit counterintuitive, but conflict, when managed effectively, can actually be a tremendously positive force for team growth.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more about how you see conflict as a positive thing.
It all comes down to reframing how we view conflict. Instead of seeing it as something to be feared or avoided, we need to recognize it as a potential catalyst for innovation, creativity, and deeper understanding. But there's a crucial caveat here. Leaders need to be equipped to understand the different types of conflict that can arise within a team and know how to facilitate healthy resolution.
So walk us through those different types of conflict. What are we talking about here?
So at the most basic level, you have what we call task conflict, disagreements about who does what, how responsibilities are divided, and who ultimately owns which deliverables.
Okay.
Then there's process conflict, those inevitable arguments about the best way to get things done, the optimal workflow, or the most efficient approach.
Yeah, I can definitely see those popping up in almost any project or initiative.
Absolutely.
So what else is there?
Well, then it starts to get a bit more complex. You have resource conflict, which often arises when resources are limited priority shared, or there's a perceived imbalance in the distribution of those resources. And then finally, you have personal conflict, which can be the most challenging to navigate, as it often involves clashes of personality values or communication styles.
Okay, so how does a leader, someone who's trying to build this cohesive and high-performing team, actually navigate all of that without things completely blowing up?
That's where the art of facilitation comes in. And we have a great example in your source material of a leader who did just that. Roberto Herencia, a VP at Banco Popular, found himself dealing with a team member who was constantly disrupting meetings, challenging everything and creating a lot of tension.
Oh, I can only imagine how stressful that must have been.
It could have easily spiraled into a negative situation.
Right.
But instead of reacting defensively or trying to shut down that disruptive behavior, Herencia saw it as a teachable moment. He confronted the team member directly, not to punish him, but to use the situation as an opportunity to teach the entire team about healthy communication and conflict resolution. He really turned what could have been a very destructive force into a valuable lesson for everyone involved.
That is such a brilliant approach. It's like he elevated the entire team's understanding of how to deal with those inevitable moments of friction.
Exactly.
So it sounds like conflict, when handled with skill and intentionality, can actually be a pressure cooker for innovation and improvement.
It can be.
But I'm curious, are there times when conflict isn't productive? What are some of those warning signs, those things that can really derail a team's progress, even if everyone has the best intentions?
That's a great question. While a certain amount of healthy conflict can be incredibly beneficial for a team, there are definitely pitfalls that can derail even the most talented group of people. These are those subtle, sometimes seemingly harmless habits or mindsets that can slowly erode trust, stifle progress, and ultimately prevent a team from reaching its full potential.
Okay, so let's unpack some of these derailers. What are the big ones that you've seen play out in teams?
One common derailer is what we call last in, first out decision-making. This happens when a decision seems to have been made during a meeting, but then someone pulls the leader aside afterwards, whispers in their ear, and influences the outcome in a different direction.
Ooh, I've seen that happen. It's like this shadow decision-making process that undermines the entire team's sense of fairness and transparency. It creates this feeling that the real decisions aren't being made in the open, which can breed resentment and distrust.
Exactly. It sends a message that backroom deals and individual influence hold more weight than collective discussion and consensus. And that's a recipe for dysfunction. Another common pitfall is becoming a prisoner to the team's consensus, even when it might not be the best path forward.
How does that work? I thought consensus was a good thing, especially when you're trying to build a cohesive team.
In theory, consensus can be a powerful tool, but in practice, it can sometimes lead to a watering down of ideas, a settling for the lowest common denominator, or a reluctance to make bold decisions that might ruffle feathers.
So a leader might be hesitant to push back against the team's consensus, even if they have reservations, because they don't want to come across as controlling or dismissive of the team's input.
Precisely. And while it's certainly important to value and respect the team's perspectives, a truly effective leader also needs to be willing to step in and provide guidance, even if it means challenging the status quo or going against the grain. Sometimes the best decision isn't the one that makes everyone happy in the moment, but the one that's ultimately in the best interest of the organization as a whole.
It's a delicate balance, isn't it? That line between empowering the team and also providing clear direction when it's needed. What are some other derailers we should be watching out for?
Well, another one that comes up quite often is what we call the kitchen cabinet syndrome. This is where a leader becomes overly reliant on a small inner circle of advisors, often to the exclusion of other voices and perspectives.
Ah, yes, I've seen that dynamic play out as well. It can create this in-group versus out-group mentality where those outside the inner circle feel like their opinions don't matter as much. And it can also lead to a lack of diversity of thought, which can stifle innovation and creativity.
Exactly. And it's often not intentional on the leader's part. They might genuinely value the input of their close advisors and see them as a trusted sounding board.
Hmm.
But it's essential to be aware of the potential pitfalls of this dynamic and to make a conscious effort to solicit input from a wider range of people.
It's like that saying, diversity is being invited to the party, inclusion is being asked to dance. It's not enough to just have a diverse group of people in the room. You have to actively create an environment where everyone feels comfortable sharing their perspectives and contributing to the conversation.
Absolutely. And one final derailer that we have to address is the fear of giving direct feedback. This is one that trips up a lot of leaders. Even those who are otherwise incredibly skilled and well-intentioned, they shy away from those difficult conversations, those moments where they need to provide constructive criticism or address performance issues because they're worried about upsetting people or damaging relationships.
That's so understandable. No one wants to be the bad guy, and it can be incredibly challenging to deliver feedback in a way that's both honest and supportive, but isn't avoiding those conversations ultimately more harmful in the long run?
Yes, absolutely. When feedback is withheld, it creates a breeding ground for resentment, misunderstandings, and missed opportunities for growth. It also sends a message that mediocrity is acceptable, which can erode standards and lower the bar for everyone.
One of your audio clips highlights this perfectly. It tells the story of a tech company president who promoted a brilliant researcher into a business leadership role. This guy was a genius in the lab, but he wasn't exactly known for his people skills or his business acumen. The president knew it was a risk, but he was committed to helping this researcher develop his leadership potential.
Yes, it's such a great example of how a leader can provide both support and challenge to help someone grow. The president didn't just throw this researcher into the deep end and hope for the best. He was very intentional about setting clear expectations, providing regular feedback, and creating a structure to help him track his progress.
Did it work? Did the researcher succeed in that new leadership role?
He did, and I think a big part of his success was the president's willingness to provide honest, direct feedback, even when it was difficult. They even came up with a system, a scale of 1 to 10, to track the researcher's progress in building relationships with other departments and making those tough trade-offs that are inherent in business decision-making.
It's amazing how a simple system like that can provide clarity and accountability while also creating a safe space for open communication. It makes you wonder, have there been times in your own career where you've encountered any of these derailers in action?
I think we've all experienced our fair share of dysfunctional team dynamics and leadership missteps. What's important is to be aware of these patterns, to recognize the warning signs, and to have the courage to address them head-on before they derail the entire operation.
Absolutely. It's all part of that ongoing journey of learning and growth that is leadership. Now, let's shift gears a bit and talk about goals. They're like the North Star for any team, providing direction, motivation, and a shared sense of purpose. But setting the right goals is trickier than it might seem at first glance, wouldn't you say?
It definitely is. Everyone loves a good goal, something to strive for, something to rally around, but it's not enough to just pull numbers out of thin air and expect magic to happen. Goals need to be carefully crafted, aligned with reality, and supported by a clear plan of action. One of your source materials provides a cautionary tale about what can happen when goals are misaligned. It features Rick Wagoner, the former CEO of General Motors. He set this incredibly ambitious goal of restoring GM's market share to 30%. It seemed like a bold move to recapture their dominance in the auto industry.
That's a pretty big goal. So what happened? Did he succeed in achieving that 30% market share?
Unfortunately, not even close. In fact, their market share continued to decline under his leadership. What's interesting is that Wagoner's single-minded focus on market share ultimately backfired. He overlooked some crucial realities of the competitive landscape. GM was facing fierce competition from companies like Toyota and Honda, known for their agility, efficiency, and ability to consistently innovate.
And I imagine GM was carrying a lot of baggage at that time. Legacy costs, a bloated product lineup, and reputation for playing catch-up in terms of technology and design. It seems like Wagoner's goal, while certainly ambitious, might have been unattainable given the constraints that GM was facing at that time.
Yes, it's a classic example of how a single metric, even one that seems as important as market share, can create blind spots and lead to a misallocation of resources. In GM's case, Wagoner's focus on market share led to unsustainable tactics like offering deep discounts and incentives, which actually eroded profitability and hurt their brand image in the long run.
So how do you avoid falling into that trap? How do you strike that balance between setting ambitious goals that inspire and motivate a team while also ensuring that those goals are grounded in reality and aligned with the broader strategic objectives of the organization?
Well, let's look at a contrasting example. One of your audio clips features Jeff Immelt, the former CEO of GE. When he took over, the company was facing slow growth in many of its core industries. Investors were expecting modest returns, but Immelt had a different vision. He set what seemed to be an incredibly audacious goal at that time of 8% organic revenue growth.
Wow, 8% for a company as massive as GE. That's a huge number. It's almost like growing an entire Fortune 500 company every year. So what was different about his approach? What allowed him to succeed where Wagoner had stumbled?
The key difference is that Immel's goal wasn't just about ambition. It was rooted in a deep understanding of the global business landscape and where he saw the greatest opportunities for growth. He wasn't just looking at past performance or industry trends. He was looking ahead, identifying those emerging markets where he believed GE could make a significant impact. He saw massive potential in areas like healthcare infrastructure and entertainment, and he focused the company's resources accordingly.
It's like that famous Wayne Gretzky quote, "I skate to where the puck is going to be, not where it has been." Immelt had that forward-looking vision, and he was willing to make bold moves to capitalize on those emerging opportunities. But it wasn't just about setting a big, hairy, audacious goal, right? There must have been more to his approach than that.
Absolutely. He understood that achieving a goal of that magnitude would require a multifaceted plan, a coordinated effort across the entire organization. He invested heavily in research and development, expanded GE's global footprint, and perhaps most importantly, focused on developing a new generation of leaders with the skills and the mindset to thrive in those dynamic, rapidly evolving markets.
So it wasn't just about the what of the goal, it was about the how of getting there. He created a roadmap, aligned resources, and built the organizational capacity to make that vision a reality.
Exactly. And he also understood that setting a single overarching goal, even one as ambitious as 8% growth, wasn't enough. He had to create a portfolio of goals that worked in concert to drive sustainable success. He set goals for maintaining their AAA credit rating, generating strong cash flow, and achieving a 20% return on invested capital.
So he was balancing short-term performance with long-term sustainability. He wasn't just chasing growth at all costs, he was building a foundation for enduring success.
Precisely. And that's a critical lesson for any leader. Goals are powerful tools, but they need to be wielded with care and intentionality. They need to be aligned with the organization's values, its capabilities, and its long-term vision. And they need to be supported by a clear plan of action and a willingness to adapt and adjust course as needed. It makes you wonder, have there been times in your own career where you felt like the goals that were set for you were misaligned or perhaps even counterproductive? How did you navigate those situations?
That's such an important question. We've all probably experienced those moments where we're asked to achieve something that feels impossible or maybe even detrimental to the long-term health of the organization. It's in those moments that our leadership is truly tested, where we have to find the courage to speak up, to challenge assumptions, and to advocate for a better path forward.
Absolutely. And that leads us to the final piece of the puzzle, building a pipeline of future leaders. This is where leadership becomes a legacy. It's about ensuring that the organization is not just successful today, but is equipped to thrive long after you've moved on.
It's about paying it forward, isn't it? Investing in the next generation of leaders who will carry the torch and continue to drive the company forward. So how do you approach that? How do you create a system for developing leaders who are prepared to navigate the complexities of the future?
It starts with aligning your leadership development processes with the future needs of the business. You have to anticipate the skills, the mindsets, and the experiences that will be essential for success in the years to come, and create a system that cultivates those qualities in your emerging leaders. Two of the organizations highlighted in your source material do this exceptionally well, GE and Colgate.
I'm curious to hear more about their approaches. What are they doing that's so effective?
So GE, under Immel's leadership, they recognized that their future success was going to be heavily dependent on their ability to innovate, to leverage technology, and to compete in this rapidly globalizing marketplace.
Yeah.
So they shifted their leadership criteria and their development programs to really emphasize those areas. They weren't just promoting people based on past performance or technical expertise. They were looking for individuals who had that potential to lead in a much more dynamic and complex environment.
So they were thinking about leadership potential in the context of the future, not just the present. What about Colgate? What's their approach to developing future leaders?
Yeah. They have a really intriguing program called the Global Talent Track.
Okay.
It's essentially a pool of high potential individuals who are groomed for those top leadership roles.
Oh, wow.
They're given diverse assignments, international exposure opportunities to work directly with senior leaders. It's like a leadership boot camp designed to create that pipeline of future CEOs.
That's brilliant. It's like investing in your leadership bench strength, ensuring that you have a deep pool of talent ready to step up and lead when the time comes.
And it's not just about developing individual leaders. It's about cultivating this culture of leadership where people at all levels of the organization feel empowered to step up, take ownership, and contribute to the company's success.
That's such a powerful concept. It's about creating a ripple effect where leadership becomes a shared responsibility, not just something that happens at the top. So as you reflect on your own journey and all this source material that you've shared with us, what's the key takeaway for you when it comes to building that legacy of leadership?
You know, it all comes back to that idea of fostering a growth mindset, not just in ourselves, but in everyone around us.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing that leadership is a journey, not a destination. We're all constantly learning, evolving, and striving to become more effective in our roles, no matter where we are in our careers.
So we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. We've explored those essential non-negotiables in leadership selection.
Right.
We delved into the dynamics of building a high-performing team. We tackled the complexities of conflict and learned how to set those ambitious yet achievable goals. And we've even touched on the importance of creating a legacy of leadership by developing that next generation of talent.
And if we connect all of this back to the bigger picture, what we're really talking about is the very essence of effective leadership. You know, it's about making those tough decisions, navigating uncertainty with courage and conviction, and inspiring others to achieve extraordinary things.
And it's about doing all of that while staying true to your values, embracing continuous learning and never losing sight of that human element at the heart of it all.
Beautifully said. And that brings us to a final thought-provoking question for you to consider as you continue on your leadership journey.
Okay.
All of the leaders that we've discussed today, they face difficult choices, choices about people, about strategies, about confronting their own limitations and pushing beyond their comfort zones. So what decision are you facing right now that might benefit from the insights that we've explored today? What opportunity do you have to step up, to lead with intentionality, and to make a positive impact on your team, your organization, or even the world around you?
It's a powerful question, isn't it? It's a reminder that leadership isn't just something we read about or listen to podcasts about. It's something we live every single day in every interaction and every choice we make.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So as you go about your week, remember that every challenge, every conversation, every decision, no matter how big or small, is an opportunity to put these leadership principles into practice. It's a chance to grow, to learn, and to make a difference.
What an inspiring way to wrap up our deep dive into the world of leadership. Thanks for joining us for this exploration, and we look forward to diving into another fascinating topic with you again soon.